we begin a cozy night of stories about elephants, where the herd's rumble rises like distant drumbeats beneath the dry ground. You'll travel with the herd from the moment you rest quietly in your mother's belly until you become the pillar that guides those young steps. Everything is told in friendly, clear, easy-to-follow words, with no tangled jargon, so anyone can listen and picture it. Breathe deep, keep a steady rhythm, and we set out with the herd through hot winds, the scent of grass, streaks of mud, and the old paths of many generations. You open your eyes in warm darkness where your mother's heart beats steady like a distant drum. Time moves slowly, day by day, through 22 long months. Every movement from your mother is as light as a small wave rolling across your body. When she walks, her belly tilts with the rhythm. When she stops beside a mud pool, the cool mud spreads through the belly wall. You hear water running and the scrape of dry leaves. Outside, the herd talks in very low sounds, hard for human ears to notice, but your tiny body feels them like currents of air moving across your skin. Each time your mother answers the herd, her chest vibrates and you feel safe. Day after day, your mother eats lots of grass, leaves, and bark to help you grow. Your body rounds out, your legs get sturdier, your skin thickens, your ears open. You practice moving your mouth and nose, practice swallowing amniotic fluid, practice kicking whenever you hear the herd's hurried steps. Sometimes a roar echoes far away. The whole herd falls silent for a brief pause. Footsteps turn cautious, then quicken again as they move into safer ground. From the calm inside your mother, you can sense how they protect one another. Your mother doesn't rest much. By day, she forages under the harsh sun. Late afternoon, the herd gathers back on an open patch to rest. At night, the air cools and insects fill the space with sound. She keeps walking at an easy pace, pausing briefly, then going on. You grow inside that rhythm. Your tiny toes are getting ready to touch the ground. Your trunk is starting to become more supple, though for now it's still just an extended part of your nose that doesn't yet know what to do. You wait for a signal, wait for a morning with more light, wait for the first moment you touch the earth. Then one day the contractions come fast. Your mother finds level ground and the herd forms a tight circle around her. No one looks away. Sweat and the smell of soil blend together. You slip out, drenched and trembling. The early wind is cold, but the ground beneath your feet is warmer than you expected. You grow a little more your mother each turns day to in the touch you herd's with her embrace. trunk, clears At away the the center membrane is the and helps you matriarch, stand. the oldest of them all.
You wobble through
She
your
is
first
no longer
steps.
as strong
Your
as she
ears
was when she
drooping
was
as you
young,
adjust to the
but her
weight.
eyes are deep
Light
and steady.
floods your eyes,
She remembers
blinding,
every
then
path,
quickly softened
every
by
water
your mother's
patch,
body,
every
shading the
shaded
sun.
stream,
You
every
hear the
cool
herd's
mud
rumble
flat under the
return,
dry sun.
deep and full.
When the herd
It
moves,
is your family's
she
welcome.
stays a little ahead.
Life outside your
ears
mother has
lifted
begun,
to the wind,
and you
trunk
understand that
angled
you will
toward
never
the
walk
distance to
alone.
test for unfamiliar scents. The herd keeps just enough space, leaning with the direction she chooses. No one jostles for place. Everyone listens to her. Even the young bulls, hot-tempered at times, slow their steps when she pauses. One afternoon, the wind shifts. A faint far-off roar slips through the grass. She does not panic. She raises her trunk higher, stands still for a few beats, then guides the herd toward an open stretch where the view is clear. The aunties take the outer ring. Calves like you stay in the middle, tucked against your mother's bellies. The herd moves without noise, without haste, but with resolve. When the air settles, she eases her stride again. The aunties take the chance to rub their backs on tree trunks and dust their skin to drive off insects. She walks past each little one, lowering her trunk to touch their heads lightly, a quiet reassurance. Each day, you learn to read signals from backs, tails, and ears across the herd. A tail held upright signals that something is wrong. An ear turning with the wind reminds everyone to pay attention. Crossing a field of tall grass, she picks the path with the fewest holes so calves won't stumble. At the riverbank, she lets the mothers and calves go down first, while she stands at the water's edge to watch. She reminds the herd to drink just enough so there will be mud left for when the sun climbs. When drought stretches on, she leads the herd farther than usual. She remembers a spring that dried up for years, but can fill again after a season of heavy rain. No one doubts her memory. The whole herd follows, tired yet keeping the rhythm. When the smell of damp earth thickens on the wind, she quickens the pace. Your eyes light up when you see the water reflecting the late afternoon sky. The herd streams down, still in order, without jostling. You understand why she leads, not because of strength, but because of memory, calm, and a sense of responsibility for every young step. Your mother's call, sound, not harsh, air, and even through the ground heard, each indistinct call. Everyone close to them knows wander off because you're busy. Flies. Your mother doesn't. She gives your just long enough, never sharp. Soles of your feet catch up. You stop, turn back with your small voice. The two of you find each afternoons, the holes on an open rise to remember returns from along the forest edge. The replies ring back together into a circle who range farther during so keep the habit of calling. The matriarch even before a shadow appears on timbre, rhythm, running through the ground. Only a greeting, some danger. When an sounds in the distance, the herd slowly changing direction. The call shift save energy. To save your breath, only when needed to keep you practice calling the aunts' names and the names in the herd. Everyone presses a trees. Over time, herd lives by these way a home has its lane. Voices of family calling. Thanks to that, dozens of kilometers in a day finds one another, share water and food together, and because of that, yours don't get lost. Your air is still, the here, but the soul's the message. Each adult sends vibrations, a few at the front, news must be shared. Beneath the dry earth, reach the far line of those in the rear through the hills and the bones of their learn to stand still for a few. When you're still, looks like an antenna, direction of the signal, to tell danger vibrations. Warning vibrate crisp, like quick, calling the herd vibrate. Near the riverbank, the rumble in the air and lead one another to move in line. When everyone lies down to light stamp from the matriarch, alert and ready to love the feeling of stand after rain. The vibrator, clearer, long distance doesn't make Lee. Sometimes answers with a low rumble, and the two herds know even without seeing. Everyone avoids needless protects their wide feeding. You were very small. This was you more than anything. Your head and couldn't see mother. All. You only had to feel the familiar and you knew the right way. Skill passed down every game, repeated until it, by talking through the order in silence, unfolds smoothly. On some days, your steps grow steadier each day, and the old paths gradually come into focus in your mind. There are no signs, no markers, yet the herd still keeps the right course thanks to the memory of generations. The matriarch remembers the small stream between two low hills, where in the dry season a shallow ribbon of water remains, enough for each group to drink in turn. She remembers the patch of forest with afternoon shade that lets the herd rest before moving on at night when the air is cooler. When the drought drags on, she does not chase rumors. She chooses the direction where dark clouds gather at the edge of the horizon, crossing stretches of ground that once showed traces of dried mud. Whenever the path turns soft, she goes first, testing each step before letting the herd pass. At times, she leads the herd off the familiar trail, over to a lower strip of land simply because of the faint scent of damp earth on the wind. A few kilometers farther, the soil grows darker, the cracks hold mud at the bottom, and a spring shows itself with a light dig. The whole herd lines up to drink without pushing, so the little ones like you can stand safely within the circle of your mother and aunts. Each rainy season, the herd returns to the fields of tender grass. Each dry season, they follow the long riverbank where shade is plentiful. The map in the matriarch's mind is not a picture hung on a wall, but a dense chain of memories from many years on the move. She remembers the smell of mineral-rich ground, the taste of the water in each pool, the depth of every stretch of river, the slope with sharp stones and the slope with rounded ones. She avoids routes near people, avoids stretches with fences, and chooses the safer detour for the whole herd. You walk in her shadow, setting your feet almost where she just set hers. Over time, you learn to read small signs like a bent leaf, a dry smear of mud on a trunk, or a tuft of grass freshly half-eaten. All of it connects into a living map in your mind. One day, when you are grown, you will add new details to that map and pass it on to the next generation so the herd never lacks water, never lacks a path, and never lacks safe places to rest along the long journeys. You grow fast and begin to explore the power of your trunk. When you were small, you only knew to touch your mother's forehead to ask to nurse, and tap your aunt's ear to ask to play. Now your trunk is more flexible. You can curl it, extend it, bend it left or right, exactly as you wish. Each morning, you practice picking up a thin blade of grass, holding it just tight enough not to crush it, then bringing it to your mouth. When a small branch blocks the path, you try lifting it off the ground to clear the way for the herd. At first, the branch slips from your grip, and you feel awkward and a little embarrassed. Your mother doesn't scold you. She touches your back with her trunk as encouragement, then demonstrates once, very slowly. You watch every movement closely, take a deep breath, tighten the tip of your trunk just a little, and lift the branch to one side. This time, the branch stays put under your control. A feeling of pride and relief spreads through your whole body. A trunk isn't just for grasping. You learn to raise it high to check scents and find the direction of water, shade, or green pasture. When the day is hot, you scoop water onto your back in a steady rhythm, rub it around, then sprinkle on a layer of damp soil to stay cool and drive insects away. When the dust is too thick, you blow a strong burst of air to sweep it clear before you step through. On mosquito-heavy afternoons, you flick the tip of your trunk gently around your eyes and forehead to protect the thin-skinned spots. In the herd, there are relatives from another region whose trunk tips have an extra small lobe, like a finger, perfect for pinching objects. Where you live, the tip has a single larger lobe, still deft at gripping when you control the pressure. Though a little different, everyone uses the trunk to touch one another whenever there's a need for comfort, celebration, or a nudge to move on. Your favorite moment is when your mother rests the tip of her trunk on the crown of your head and holds it there for a few beats. That gesture lets all the day's worries drift away. Each day, you add a new skill. In the morning, you practice picking up small things. At noon, you practice bending soft branches. And in the afternoon, you practice scooping water over and over without spilling. By evening, you can pull up a thick clump of grass without breaking too many roots, so it will grow back next season. You understand that the trunk is the most important tool in an elephant's life. It helps with eating, drinking, bathing, self-defense, communication, and caring for one another. You promise yourself to use it carefully and skillfully, so every step is gentle and useful to the herd. On a sweltering morning, the herd stops beside a pool still full after the night's rain. The water is clear and carries a pleasant scent of damp earth. Mother tells you to watch closely how to use breath for drinking and for work. You lower the tip of your trunk to the surface, open the passage by gradually relaxing it, then take one long inhale. Water flows inside in a steady stream. You lift your trunk, aim it straight into your mouth, release your grip, and feel the cool water pour down your throat. The first time, a few drops cling to your lip because you didn't close at the right moment. The second time is tidier. After a few tries, you can drink in one go without choking, and your mouth stays free of mud. Not just drinking, you also learn to spray water in an even stream to rinse your eyes, your ears, and the patches of skin caked with dry mud. When you need a quick bath, you draw in water again and again and spray it in layers to cover your back, then toss a bit of damp earth on top. A fine coat of mud settles snugly, not too thick, just enough to shield your skin from the noon sun and soothe the itchy spots. When you find small fruit lying close to the ground, you don't bend too deep. You use a light suck with your trunk to lift it off the soil, then switch to a pinch to bring it to your mouth. These moves demand a steady breath and more control than yesterday. You also practice blowing out a strong jet of air to clear the way. In front of a thicket, you give one short blast to check for insects or snakes hiding underneath. If they're there, they scatter, and your herd steps through safely. Crossing a bed of fine sand, you blow in short bursts to uncover the firm ground below before you place your feet, avoiding a deep sink. Toward evening, you use a gentle breath to blow dust from a calf's eyes, then press the tip of your trunk to its forehead like a soft stroke. By the end of a day of training, you feel the power of breath more clearly. Inhale at the right moment, hold in the right place, release at the right point. Everything falls into rhythm. Breath is no longer only about staying alive, it is also how you work efficiently and safely. You feel yourself grow by a measure, not because you are bigger, but because you have taken command of your trunk and your own breath. Night settles over the grassland. The air eases, and the wind moving through the trees makes a steady rustle. The herd chooses a wide, dry patch of ground and stands in a crescent. No one sleeps for long. The ants take turns dozing, then open their eyes to look around again. Mother stands beside you, sometimes leaning a little to rest for a few minutes, then stepping over to trade places with an ant behind. When it feels safe, the herd lies down for one short stretch, mostly only a few dozen minutes, then stands up and moves on before the sky brightens. You wonder why everyone sleeps so little. The answer lies in the herd's rhythm. Each day they need to travel far to find grass, find water, and avoid the heat. Sleeping long out in the open risks missing a good water source or the cool window that's best for moving.
So the herd breaks rest into small pieces. One keeps watch, another sleeps. At any strange sound, everyone rises quickly and changes direction if needed. You are still small, so you need more short naps. Mother understands that. She uses her trunk to shield your face from mosquitoes and dust. Her back is warm, her breathing steady like a natural blanket. When you drift off, the herd keeps a slow pace so you can rest while everyone moves. On cool, rainy days, the herd can lie down longer. Then the grass smells sweeter, the earth is softer, and the sleep is deeper. Before dawn, the sky pales and the birds grow clear. The matriarch taps her foot lightly. The herd rises, stretches, and sets out again. Even with little sleep, everyone stays alert because they're used to short, regular breaks. You learn to close your eyes a few times a day, each time only briefly but with quality, so your body stays ready. You understand that sleep isn't just lying down for a long time, but choosing the right moment, the right place, the right posture. Thanks to that, the herd travels very far yet stays strong and keeps good spirits through each long day.
In the morning, just as the sun lifts over the line of trees, you already hear your mother's gentle call. She lets you nurse before the herd sets out. The milk is warm with a light fragrance, keeping you full and strong for many hours. When the herd moves, you think staying close to your mother would be enough, but very quickly you realize the whole family is caring for you. The aunties walk along the outside, shading you from sun and wind, flicking insects off your face with quick ear flicks and soft strokes of their trunks. When your mother stops to feed at the forest edge, one auntie stands beside you on watch, eyes scanning all around so you stay safe. Playtime is also lesson time. You practice walking over uneven ground, placing each foot at the right spacing so you don't slip. The aunties teach you how to choose good grass by its smell and color. You learn to tell tender young leaves from the older fibrous ones. By noon, your mother drops a few strands of grass she has chewed well so you can practice weaning. The first taste of grass feels a bit strange, but when you swallow, you feel at ease. In the days that follow, the weaning portions grow, while milk remains your main food until you're big enough. The whole herd follows rules no one says out loud, yet everyone understands. When crossing a riverbank, mothers and calves go first. When they reach a meadow marked with signs of predators, the aunties line up side by side to shield the risky side. Whenever you drift from your mother because you're busy roaming, the nearest auntie touches her trunk to your back and guides you back to a safe spot. No one raises their voice or rushes. Every movement is clear, calm, and effective. As the air starts to cool, your belly feels full and your eyelids grow heavy. Your mother comes over and touches your head with her trunk, and another auntie sprinkles a little fine earth over your back to ease your skin. You lie down beside your mother and listen to her steady heartbeat. You realize how lucky you are to grow up in the arms of the herd. Here, every meal, every step, every nap is a small lesson that helps you grow without stumbling too much. On a scorching day, the shade is thin and the hot wind blows straight into your face. The matriarch leads the herd to a riverbank with damp soil. Everyone shares the few rare patches of shade. The big ears get to work. You see each ear fanning steadily, not so fast that it becomes tiring, but strong enough to send a cool breeze across the neck and shoulders. The blood vessels beneath the thin skin of the ears help release heat efficiently. After a short while, breathing settles back to calm. Ears aren't just for cooling. When the herd moves, a light flick of your mother's ear is a signal to give way. When there's an unfamiliar sound, the ears stand upright and everyone pays attention at once. When they reunite after a round of foraging, members tilt their ears and lean into one another like a gentle greeting. Those small gestures keep the herd orderly without any fuss.
You learn to read that language each day and gradually understand that ears can say a great many things. Once bodies have cooled, the herd steps down to the water's edge. You bathe quickly, then climb back onto the bank and stand beside your mother as she spreads a fine layer of mud over your back. The mud isn't thick, just enough to block the sun and soothe insect bites. You use your trunk to coat your forehead and around your eyes, taking care not to let mud fall into your eyes. When you're done, you shake your ears hard to flick off the leftover water along the edges. You feel instantly lighter. As evening falls, the wind loses its heat. The matriarch stamps once. The herd tightens its formation, everyone's ears pointed forward, ready for tonight's stretch. You look around and see everyone calm and strong. The ears have finished their part. Thanks to them, the herd made it through the harsh noon without exhaustion. You understand more clearly that an elephant's body is a set of delicate tools. As long as you know how to listen and use them properly, everything from the trunk to the ears can help the herd live safely across a wide land full of challenges. The herd moves into leaves have dried after the matriarch slow blocking the path and branch. The crack and the ground opens in. You watch and yank to rip the plant out. Rotate the branch in one drain weakens. Then the path widens so everyone files. By noon, the dried depression with firm strokes of her beneath is damper. Water seeps up at the bottom, turns digging until the hope. You learn to list right, taking turns. After the herd finishes, antelope comes to try. A small water holding place for many species. Cool of afternoon, the herd follow. The mud is and pleasantly earthy through once, leaving. Soon those do a protective coat becomes a shared bath with other animals. Trunks uprooted by lasts lying across the ground placed by the herd. Acts that hold back rainwater, keep water in the lowlands, sprout more evenly when you realize every mark on the environment. Hundreds of crossings to let the group move quickly. Broken branch opens a path, a waterhole stretch of heat, a elephant skin, but all host of small creatures. Long plans, heated acts have in very useful ways. You sit beside your mother tree. The faint scent of dried back on the day and see roll in this land. No credit claimed, place more alive, simply through the habit of drinking the right way. Growing up is not only about, but also about no tidy path, a clear stretch of grass that early morning, while the grass is still wet with dew, you start your meal with young tufts along the forest's edge. A few wild trees are heavy with fruit, their fallen pieces littered around the base. You pick up the ripe ones, chew carefully, and swallow. The sweetness is light and fragrant. The herd eats in a loose line as it moves. Toward the end of the morning, the herd stops at an open clearing to rest. The ground here is dark brown with no sharp stones. As everyone passes, they leave round, warm, nutrient-rich piles of dung. Soon after, dung beetles arrive, carve their tunnels, and bury it. When the first rains touch down, the dung breaks apart and sinks into the soil. Inside that dung, the seeds that just traveled through an elephant's belly remain, clean of their coats and moist enough. A few weeks later, you return to an old path and see green specks mixed into the grass. They sprout right along the stretches where the herd once rested. The seeds have found the right place at the right time. No one has to sow by hand, no one has to tend with a watering can, yet the seedlings rise evenly thanks to the herd's long days of travel. As the herd ranges farther, the seeds are carried farther. These plants at the forest's edge have parents on the steep western slope, a good 10 kilometers away. You notice seedlings grow faster where the dung has rotted. The soil is softer, darker. Green bands spread along the herd's routes. Where the rains come late, the seedlings still live because the soil holds its moisture. A few small birds land on the fresh grass, eat insects, and scatter their own tiny seeds. Circle follows circle. On the way back, you come upon a barren patch that last year was nothing but rock. Today, fine mats of grass have appeared in the cracks. You remember that last year the herd rested here one afternoon and left a few piles right beside the boulders. Now the green has found a foothold. Not noisy, not abrupt. The ground slowly comes back to life by the slow, steady rhythm of time. You understand that each meal of the herd feeds more than bellies. It feeds the land you pass through. Seeds follow the elephants out and back, carrying on the story of the forest and the grasslands. Sun, mosquitoes or buzz around your eyes. The aunties, deft of the right size, and keep the soft tip lightly around shoulders, forming a flexible screw. Captivated and wanting. Mother chooses not too heavy to not too soft to snap it with the tip of your trunk, familiar, then ears. Relieve insects scatter. Don't stop there. With sharp grass, branches to clear its foot. When a heap of dry grass, to pull it into small aside. When thorny bush, a extended hand to pulling skin. Ask, without rushing, is a helper rather than in the afternoon and a dry twig from your head. Sweeps it toward a safe, then lets you move on. Two things. One, above, because wind without warning. Use a branch to sweep safe side and leave at sunset on the high bank. Back to the old pile, not to leave branches. Tomorrow, the neatly gathered clean and prevent stuff the branch down, smooth to erase the scuffs yourself. Today, all but useful things, driving off mosquitoes, fetching fruit safely, and another step forward. Strength, but also in the spirit of keeping the
At noon, on a quiet noon, while the herd was resting, the wind carried faint voices from afar. Everyone lifted their heads at once. The matriarch signaled for silence. Ears stood upright, trunks angled toward the sound. These sounds were not like the calls of familiar elephant herds. They were human voices. The herd had encountered many different groups of people. Some passed quietly and kept their distance. Some came closer and caused trouble. The matriarch was very keen in telling them apart. Timbre, cadence, the way footsteps fell, and the scents the wind brought all offered clues. When the voices sounded near and urgent, the herd pulled into a tight formation, calves to the center. The aunts stood on the outside. Mother rested her trunk on your back to steady you. If the wind carried the familiar scent of the gentle people the herd had met by the river last season, everyone only stepped back slightly and kept eating. If it was an unfamiliar smell and a lot of noise, the herd left the place by moving upwind to avoid them. Once, from a corner of the forest, sounds came from a strange object set on the ground. The noise resembled human speech, but there were no footsteps. The matriarch still treated it as a risk until she was sure no one was approaching. The herd gathered quickly, stood still, and listened. When she saw no other movement, she eased and led the herd on a wide detour. You learned that responding to people must be calm and clear. Do not bolt in panic and risk collisions. Do not linger too long where shifting winds make sense hard to read. Walk in file, keep the pace, keep the calves in the middle, and maintain a safe distance in all directions. In the afternoon, the herd looked for an open patch of ground with good visibility to rest, avoiding thickets that could hide people. You understood that learning to recognize human voices and signs is as important as recognizing the scent of lions or hyenas. This lesson helps the herd live peacefully in a land with more and more human paths. Thin clouds walk beside your mother, and something special in a large body needs cells can sometimes fail. In layers of protection, watch when a cell suddenly behaves. Guard system orders it to stop in time. Stays in balance, even though inside each day. See these things with your eye through the herd's health. Old and still walks. Small wounds from thorns. Skin closes cleanly. Individual is tired from a long rest. Enough water, let the body regain its rivers in the herd are all we're letting anyone reach. A mother teaches you another herd passes a mineral and licks a little of the soil slightly salty and replenish what's needed after. The habit doesn't it helps the body keep working when the weather is cool, so the skin won't burn bite. When there are mud is a protect skin closes over. But an elephant's health depends size, but also from the inside out. Diet. Drink the right just enough. Bathe in, add minerals when safe formation to avoid hidden under nutrition system. Always because of it, even under winds, long roads, herd can grow strong. You feel at ease. Noble layers of guardians keep good habits to support. The air. The dry season arrives slowly but surely.
The grass turns yellow, and the small puddles show their bottoms. The matriarch changes the pace of travel. She no longer wanders across wide feeding grounds. She gathers the herd into a tighter line, favoring shade and raised ridges to avoid the reflected heat. You walk close to your mother, stepping into the faint old prints on the hard ground. Those prints aren't accidental. They are paths used year after year, always leading to water. One noon, the wind carries a faint scent of damp earth. The matriarch stops, lifts her trunk, takes a deep breath, then turns decisively to the northeast. This turn has no green grass, only cracked ground and a few thorny shrubs. You worry a little because the sun is still harsh and the herd has been on the move since morning. She is not in a hurry. She lets the herd rest briefly under a brown knoll, then continues. By late afternoon, the ground turns darker. The cracks have fine mud clinging to their edges, proof it was wet here recently. She quickens her steps a little. A few hundred paces more, a shallow channel appears, with clear water at its bottom. The herd lines up to drink in groups. Calves and mothers go first, then the aunts and the young males who have just joined. No one pushes, some scoop, others wait. Slippery spots on the bank are lined with dry branches so no one slips. After drinking, they use their trunks to rinse faces and ears, then coat a thin layer of fine mud to keep moisture. On the far bank, old scratch marks remain clear, a reminder that last year the herd also stopped here. Night falls, the sky full of stars. The matriarch chooses the way back along the edge of low rocky knolls, where there is shade and a clear view. You notice the herd avoids fresh vehicle tracks and distant fences. When a road cuts across the path, they follow it for a stretch, find a safe place to cross, then go over. She always goes first, reading the wind, scanning the ground, checking for unfamiliar scents. A few days later, clouds gather. Thunder rumbles far away. She leads the herd to a wide earthen hollow with ridges of fallen trees from the previous season. Rain pours down and water pools into small ponds at the foot of the ridges. She still remembers each ridge and each groove because they hold water very well. When the rain stops, the herd drinks, bathes, then rests. You understand that the map in her head holds not only routes, but also timing and use. Where water is, which path gets less sun, where it's easy to slip, which bank has a gentle slope. Everything sits neatly in that memory. Thanks to that, the dry season passes calmly and the herd is not pushed into dangerous steps.
Early morning, the herd comes upon a stretch of ground marked by human footprints and wooden posts planted in a straight line. Beyond it is a newly plowed field. The matriarch lifts her trunk to check, then turns off in another direction to avoid it. Not every place with people is dangerous, but where the land is carved up by fences, traps, and steel stakes, the herd should go around. You watch the newly cut roads for vehicles and feel a strange unease. The grassland that used to be green is now just a bare strip of earth, dust rising on both sides when the wind grows strong. All that day, the herd moves cautiously. When they stop at the edge of a sparse forest, the matriarch lets everyone rest more deeply than usual, waiting until it is fully dark before crossing a valley with scattered homes. You hear dogs barking far off, the sound of chickens and children. The herd keeps silent, moves in a line, touches no fences, stays clear of fish ponds. She chooses the open gaps between cultivated plots to pass through. A few days later, the herd comes upon a patch of fields with ripe fruit left over. The scent carries very far. The matriarch does not let the herd stop. She stamps once, turns, and leads everyone around toward the edge.
You feel a little regret at the fragrance, but your mother presses her trunk to your shoulder to remind you that stopping here easily brings trouble. Those sweet smells often come with ropes, stakes, or guards. Taking the longer way around is much safer. In the afternoon, the herd meets a group of people on motorbikes riding along the dirt road. They stop at a distance, keep their distance, point, and take photos. The matriarch draws the herd along at a slow pace, neither agitated nor lingering. Once out of sight, the herd stops at a patch of low grass and drinks from a pit they dug the last time. She always prepares such backups so the herd does not depend on water sources near settlements. You understand that the boundaries of survival now are not only natural predators, but also roads, fences, fields, and people's granaries. The herd adapts by traveling more at night, keeping a tighter formation, learning safe detours, and finding old water sources far from where people live. When mutual respect grows, clashes lessen. When each side knows when to stop, the grass stays green, the fields stay quiet, and the herd can make it through the dry season without being pushed into needless confrontations. One noon, the herd stopped along the forest edge where many trees had thick bark. The aunts used their tusks to pry off slabs of bark to reach the soft, nutrient-rich layer inside. You watched, absorbed by those sure, steady motions. But in a branch of relatives in another region, many females don't carry tusks. The elder said that area once had many poaching raids. Females without tusks survived at higher rates, and over time the number of such individuals in the herd increased. You begin to understand that tusks are not just hard things at the front of the head. In peaceful places, they're good tools for levering roots, stripping bark, digging up tubers. In hunted places, they make their owners easier to target. As the number of tuskless individuals grows, the herd has to adjust how it eats. Instead of prying bark with tusks, everyone uses the forefeet to press and snap low branches, or uses the trunk to pull at bark strips that are already cracked. The deft aunts teach how to choose soft trees and find spots that pry easily so you don't waste effort. You practice applying even force, avoiding sharp jerks that could tear the skin. On days near human areas, the herd moves quickly across open swaths, stopping only where the wind is sheltered and there are few footprints. When roots must be dug from hard ground, everyone takes turns using the tips of their feet and their trunks to flip up small clods, making sure no one has to strain alone for too long. This way is slower than when many individuals carry tusks, but it's still effective if the whole herd coordinates smoothly. Mother tells you not to be proud or sad about having tusks or not. What matters is knowing how to live safely and using whatever you have with skill. Tomorrow might bring soft wood, the next day hard earth, and the week after the season of ripe fruit. Whoever is more flexible stumbles less. You nod and keep practicing snapping branches at the right height, pulling bark strips at the right moment, so each meal doesn't depend on any single thing. The herd keeps passing through different kinds of land, and you learn to adapt gently but surely. Late in the afternoon, the herd drew near a small hamlet. Along the edge of the fields, wooden boxes hung in a row, linked together by a cord. Whenever the wind rocked them, the cord trembled and the boxes moved slightly. Inside were bees. The buzzing was steady and clear. The matriarch stopped to observe. The herd did not enter that field but went around through the outer grass. You realize this is how people here protect their crops without harming the herd. Bees hate being disturbed and can attack when handled roughly. The elephants understand that and keep their distance, because stings on thin skin cause pain and swelling. A few days later, when the herd came upon a group of people checking the bee fence, they stood back and watched. The people walked gently along the line, tightening slack cords, checking the box lids, and puffing a little smoke to calm the bees before touching anything. When they left, the herd continued the detour. No one grew curious and went closer. Mother reminded you to keep your distance from wooden boxes strung on cords like these. In this way, the herd stays out of the fields and people keep their rice and fruit. Night fell, the wind turned cool, and the detour made the herd travel a bit farther, but in peace. The matriarch chose a patch of ground on the edge to rest. The next morning, the herd crossed a dry stream, went up onto land without houses, and continued north. On the way, you saw a few places where people had hung simple wooden signs warning of bees. The herd slowed, observed, then turned onto another path lined with low shrubs. You understand that living together does not mean stepping on one another. A fence made of beehives can be enough to remind everyone to keep their distance. When people use a gentle method, the herd answers with a detour. Both sides reduce risk. The fields are not ruined, the elephants are not driven off. This lesson is simple, yet effective. With just a cord stringing together wooden boxes that can buzz, an entire stretch of land can be more peaceful through the harvest season. The herd passes years ago used to be a on the sparse bone fragments. The matriarch stops. Mother stops by her side. In a wide circle, no noise, and touches the big skull. The bones rough. Then touches a nearby. One by one, touch back. No one drifts off. Focused. A few are the dried twigs near the side, so the paths. One stands still, ears lowered, breathe. You don't know who that. Sure, the bones belonged in the past, but you can very clearly. Well, the matriarch stamps. The whole herd stands still a few more minutes on in line. As you step past, Mother touches her trunk. Doesn't explain at length. Moment just now, reminder that the herd does not those who came before. Learn to stand still. Paths around bones clean with calm and gratitude. By noon, the herd broad-crowned trees through the leaves, the great. You close your ear, even footsteps along. That quiet morning clearly. Life goes still long, but within there is always room for. Thanks to that, remembers the herds, and that the neck on paths opened by. On a windless afternoon, the last light of day stretches across the yellow grass. The matriarch stops at the edge of the clearing and gives a light stomp, one beat. The vibration carries cleanly through the ground. The aunties farther off turn at once and draw the formation tight. No panic, no noise. Each stomp is a message. A short stomp calls attention. A longer stomp asks for a change of direction. When an urgent muster is needed, 3 or 4 individuals stomp in an even rhythm so everyone understands in time. You stand still for a few seconds to listen with the soles of your feet, Feel the direction and the strength, then shift toward the place between the mothers. The way the herd gathers follows a familiar sequence. Calves inside the ring, mothers and aunties on the outside. The big ones stand offset, each watching a different bearing. Tails lowered, ears aimed toward whatever seems unusual. If it feels safe, the formation loosens by degrees. If it feels risky, the ring stays tight and they move as a block. No one breaks away. When they meet a dense patch that could hide a predator, they choose a detour instead of pushing into the brush. The aunties take turns walking last so no one falls behind. You like best the moment when the formation moves like a net. Crossing a slick stream bank, two aunties stand on either side as posts so the calves pass between them. Climbing a rocky slope, the big ones stand interleaved, so if one slips, there is a body right behind to brace it. At an open patch, the herd fans out so each group can rest, then gathers again with a series of light foot stomps. Everything is so clear that no loud calls are needed. Night falls, and the voices of frogs and insects thicken. When traveling by night, the herd uses more signals through the feet to avoid alerting other creatures. The matriarch taps a very soft beat to remind everyone to change lines when the ground ahead holds a shallow pit. You stay tucked between the mothers, eyes adjusting to the dark, ears still listening. After a while, the vibrations ease and the formation relaxes. They graze a little tender grass along the stream's edge, drink, then move on. You understand that the herd's language is not complicated, but it is subtle enough to keep everyone safe. The beats stamped into the ground, the places each one stands, the ears all turned the same way, together they form a system easy to remember, one anyone can follow. Thanks to it, the herd avoids being split up when tensions rise. You memorize each small rule because these ordinary things are what carry the herd through countless surprises along the long road. And the wind hot and dry. Arc leads the herd at the river's edge. Smooth, moderate sinking past the knee. Cues in turn. Water up onto the cab, then tend to themselves on your side and rolly, so the mud shoulders to hips, trunk to smooth spot so it won't crack. The areas around the ears are rinsed with thin layer is applied of the sun. The herd moves to dry for too long. A few minutes, then moves the mud coat, shielding soothing places where in. You rub smooth tree trunk to patches. These without sharp bark the skin. Scratches too hard, another tree with a soft. At midday, thorny branches are treated. The aunties rinse them with clean water, dab this, then cover them with mud. No one goes to the sun for long afternoon, the mud's edge, so the skin in a fresh, thin coat or crossing the open grass. Watch and learn the small roll in mud where sharp. Don't wallow, it's hard to stand. Fall into your eye against a trunk when sun drying the wind, so the mud. Those simple sounds, the whole herd keep their dry season. The sky softens, dried just enough until coat. Feeling your body at ease. Realize mudbathing is fun, but a careful by washing the drying at the right times, at the right thickness, the hot day with skin cool and scarce.
The sun climbs high.
When the rains come, the water rises in the tributaries. The matriarch chooses a low bank with a gentle current and a bottom with few deep holes to lead the herd across. Before stepping into the water, everyone waits in groups. The mothers and calves go first. Two big, strong aunts take the sides. The herd does not jostle. Each foot is set firmly, step by step, to test the bottom. If they meet a soft spot, the whole line steps back a beat and chooses another direction. You learn to breathe through your trunk when the water reaches your shoulders. The trunk must always point upward, the mouth kept shut to avoid choking. Mother keeps you close at her flank, the tip of her trunk touching lightly against your back to remind you to stay straight. When the current runs faster midstream, the herd shifts into a diagonal formation to blunt the force, helping the middle group move steadily. The larger ones take the downstream side, the smaller ones the upstream side, with spacing just wide enough not to collide, yet close enough to touch when support is needed. There is a small sandbar in midstream. The herd pauses for a few minutes to steady its breathing, shake water from ears and eyes, then finishes the crossing. You watch the places where dense trees hug the bank, because crocodiles often hide there. The matriarch brings the herd ashore at an open, airy gap, avoiding thickets that block the view. On land, everyone shakes off the water, rolls over a strip of fine sand to warm up, then coats themselves with a thin layer of mud. Not every day goes smoothly. Some days the water rises quickly because of upstream rain. Then she has the herd wait until late at night for the water to fall before crossing. No one is impatient. On the bank, the aunts dig shallow pits to draw clean water so the calves can drink for the time being. The next morning, when the water is calmer, the herd crosses in gentle sunlight and early bird song. With many rounds of practice, you fix the essentials in mind. Watch the water, test the bottom with your feet, keep the trunk high, move in a diagonal line, rest on a sandbar when there is one, come ashore in open places, shake off the water and warm up before moving on. Thanks to such steady steps, the herd crosses safely even though the current changes with the seasons. Early in the morning, the herd moves into a low stretch of forest with many mid-canopy trees. The grass underfoot grows thick but lacks light. The aunts pick a few old trees with already broken branches and snap them clean to open gaps. With light reaching the ground, young grass will rise more evenly after the coming rain. Along the forest edge, a few heavy, straight-trunked hardwoods are kept because they hold the soil well in the rainy season. Trees with weak crowns, heavy insect damage, or fungus rotting at the base are thinned so they won't topple in the windy season. During the meal, the herd doesn't strip any one spot. Each group eats a little, then moves to the next clearing. This dispersed grazing lets the grass recover. When they find ripe fruit, everyone ticks the ground clean around the trunk so the seeds travel far through the gut instead of clogging in one place. On gently sloped banks, the herd only breaks branches within reach to open a path, not wrench up shallow-rooted saplings. You learn to read the scene quickly. A trunk with longitudinal cracks signals near rot, a gentle push and it will fall. A thick, sound-barked trunk is kept to break the wind. Dense thorny shrubs on erosion-prone ground shouldn't be cleared because their roots hold the bank. On a grass patch, if old feeding marks are too dense, the herd shifts to another patch so this one can recover. By noon, the herd rests at the forest edge, where the light falls just right. Birds arrive and scratch for beetles on the newly exposed soil. A wild boar leads her piglets along the broken branches to forage. The whole area becomes lively without turning chaotic. At night, looking back along the track you've made, you can see the new windows of light opened, the grazing grounds shared out, and the trees that needed keeping still standing firm. You understand that keeping a forest doesn't mean never touching it. It means knowing where, how much, and when to act. The herd does this every day through small habits: snapping dead branches, sparing the sturdy trees, grazing in a spread, sending seeds far, and avoiding too much bare ground. The result is a balanced picture where fresh grass, big trees, and other species coexist. On ordinary days, the herd starts early while the air is still cool. They feed in two main windows, morning and late afternoon. At the hot noon, they seek shade, drink, bathe in mud, stand to rest, and take short naps in turns. When the sun softens, they move again to reach a farther patch of grass. On nights with a cool breeze, they can walk a few more kilometers to a quiet riverbank. A steady routine helps everyone keep their strength. By season, the route changes. At the beginning of the rains, they climb the high mounds where tender grass sprouts early. Mid-season, they shift to the flatlands to graze on swards that are just tall enough. At the end of the rains, they follow the river down to the low fields because water still remains along the banks. In the dry season, they return to places with dense shade and old water holes. The matriarch relies on the scent of the wind, the color of the clouds, and years of memory to time the move from one place to another, not waiting until the grass is completely spent. You can see the flexibility in each decision. If a lush patch lies near where people are, the herd only slips in late at night, eats just enough, then leaves before the night grows deep. If the rains arrive early, they shorten their rest in the dry zone to take advantage of the new growth. When the sky gathers heavy cloud but has not yet rained, they still go toward darker ground, where damp streaks are likely to hold water through the night. Each individual has a task within the shared rhythm. The mothers eat while watching the calves. The aunts sometimes ease off to the left or right to check the way. The matriarch never leaves her post of observation. When they meet Old Lion Sign, the herd swings out in a wider arc. When they meet a stretch of fine sand, they go slowly so dust will not blow into their eyes. When night falls, they stand in a half circle facing into the wind. The deep calls grow sparser, giving way to lighter footsteps. You lean against your mother's flank, eyes closing. The rhythm of today closes complete. Morning will come again, and the herd will keep stepping to a familiar yet flexible cadence, unhurried but not sluggish, always leaving room for every member from young to old to keep pace together. You are grown now, and your trunk is no longer a novelty. Today, you devote the whole day to practicing difficult movements. First is gripping a round object. You pick a fruit lying close to the ground, set the tip of your trunk on its smooth surface, squeeze just enough so it won't slip, then lift it slowly. If you squeeze too hard, the fruit is crushed. If too lightly, it will fall. You repeat it many times until you find the right force. Next comes the wrapping and twisting move. You wind your trunk around a bundle of grass, twist gently to gather it neatly, then pull it toward yourself without bumping the small one standing nearby. Mother reminds you to always mind your distance from others, because a long trunk can accidentally brush someone's face when you turn. Then comes clearing the path. You stand before a low thicket, blow a steady stream of air to reveal the ground, and check whether insects or snakes lie beneath. When it's safe, you use your trunk to lift the small branches out one by one, stacking them so those behind won't trip. When you meet a medium-sized rock, you don't try to pry the whole slab, but roll it aside along the downhill slope. When a shallow pit is needed for water, you use your trunk to scoop fine soil up onto the rim, keeping the edge tidy so it won't cave in. At noon, in the heat, you practice a continuous sequence of drinking and bathing. Draw water into the hollow of your trunk in one long pull, pour it into your mouth, and repeat a few times until your thirst is fully quenched. Then take shorter pulls and spray it in jets to rinse your eyes, behind your ears, and along your spine. When fine mud is ready, you scoop up moderate portions and spread them evenly over your shoulders, back, and hips. The aunties remind you not to lay mud too thickly in the folds, because when it dries, it will crack and sting. By afternoon, the herd crosses a dense stretch of forest. You use your trunk like a guiding hand, tapping tall trunks lightly to gauge distance, sweeping thick leaves from your face, and pulling down vines to keep them from tangling the calves' legs. On a slick bank, you set the tip of your trunk down before each step to feel the ground's grip, then choose a surer place to plant your foot. When you find ripe fruit fallen deep inside a thorny bush, you reach your trunk in from the side without sharp spines and use measured force to draw the fruit out. In the evening, you try a small game with friends your age. Each picks up a branch that fits the grip, runs in a circle, then puts the branch back in exactly the same spot. The game seems simple, but it trains memory for place, control of force, and orderliness when moving with a group. As the day ends, you realize your trunk not only does many things, it also teaches you patience, care, and the habit of thinking of others before you act. A misty morning makes the ground slicker than usual. As the herd edges along a gentle slope, an aunt slips into a shallow hollow and scrapes the top of her foot. The whole herd stops at once. Two large ones stand upwind in front to keep dust from blowing into the scrape. Mother uses her trunk to rinse the swelling with a few pulses of clean water, gently pats it dry, then covers it with a thin layer of mud for protection. The matriarch changes the route, steering away from slopes and taking flatter ground even though it is farther. Over the next 2 days, the pace slows. The formation is adjusted so the injured aunt is always in the middle and doesn't have to tackle steep climbs. At rest stops, everyone arranges their places so she has deeper shade. At meals, the herd lingers longer so she can stand long enough on soft ground and hurt less. Each morning, the scrape is washed clean and given fresh mud. In the afternoon, some is shaken off to let the skin breathe. After 3 days, the swelling goes down noticeably, and she steps more firmly. This isn't the first time the herd has faced a mishap. Once, the water rose too fast, and the group had to turn back midstream. The big ones immediately formed a diagonal line, cutting the current to help the young turn around. Another time, a low patch of ground that seemed firm suddenly sank. The one in front stepped back at once and stamped once to warn. Everyone behind held still, and no one tried to take one more step into the soft spot. You learn how to stay calm in the face of risk. Don't show off on slick ground. Don't rush into a strong current. Don't try to force a crossing when you're unsure. When you do get hurt, what matters is keeping it clean, shielding it sensibly, changing the pace, and giving the body time to heal. No one pushes, and no one casually brushes it aside. Thanks to orderly handling, the herd always returns to a stable state after each incident. You understand that growing up is not only being strong, but also knowing when to stop so a small matter doesn't turn into a big one. At the start of the rainy season, the smell of damp earth grows stronger, and several young males in the area begin to walk far more than usual. On both sides of their faces, a secretion with a distinctive pungent scent seeps out, and the urine dribbled along the way is darker and thicker. They eat little, move fast, and often stop to mark. Whenever they come near a herd of females, they keep just enough distance and circle the outside to show strength without causing agitation. The matriarch keeps strict order during this phase. Calves and mothers stand deep in the center. The big, sturdy aunts hold the edges, eyes always tracking the path of the approaching male. If a male merely passes by and continues on, the herd relaxes. If a male tries to press in without restraint, the herd tightens its formation and leaves the area upwind. There are no pointless clashes. In open ground, two adult males sometimes meet and test themselves. Both advance slowly, heads lowered, ears spread. They clash tusks and push in steady beats, then separate, rest, and push again. The trial ends when one shows himself weaker and chooses to yield. The loser is not driven to a dead end. The winner does not pursue. Both turn away in different directions to avoid further contact. You notice this period changes the mood of the grassland. There is more marking scent, more pounding steps, and the crack of branches at the forest edge is heard more often. The female herd moves with stricter discipline to avoid trouble. The males pass through a season that drains much energy, then return to their ordinary rhythm, eat to catch up, sleep to catch up, and gradually regain weight. Though you are still young, the lesson is very clear. Strength needs to go with order. Whoever knows when to stop lets the season of force pass without leaving lasting wounds on anyone. One morning, the herd moved along a narrow earthen corridor linking two forests that had been severed by a road. Small wooden markers stood at the corridor's edges, painted with clear, visible signs. People in the area had set this corridor aside for herds to pass safely. No traps, no planting, no shelters. The matriarch led the herd through briskly, with no grazing along the way so no one would linger. Only at the end of the corridor did the group turn into the wide grassland beyond. In a village not far away, residents hung a few small metal bells along the field edges. When the wind blew or there was movement, the bells rang with a steady tone. Hearing them, the herd understood that people were keeping watch ahead. The matriarch guided everyone to turn through a fallow field where the grass stood tall and there were no houses. Near the stream, a simple wooden sign announced an area reserved for elephants to drink at night. This spot lay far from croplands, so there were few encounters, even in the dry season. In the afternoon, a group of youths patrolling by bicycle rode along the dirt road. They stopped at a distance, raised their hands to signal they understood, and backed away. The herd crossed quickly, keeping a compact formation. At the forest edge, a small mineral lick had been prepared so the elephants could replenish salts after many days on the move. Thanks to places like this, the herd had little need to seek out crop storehouses. The path to coexistence is built from simple things: a corridor, a sign, a nighttime watering place, a mineral lick, a beehive fence at the field edge. You understand that when there are routes dedicated to wildlife, the herd does not have to risk crossing busy roads. When there are a few early signals, both elephants and people can keep their distance in time. When there are watering banks and fallback feeding grounds, the herd need not come right up to people's homes. Things are not perfect at once, but each season is better than the last. You see hope in the way people and elephants gradually learn to make way for each other on shared ground. You have passed through many seasons of rain and sun, knowing every riverbank,
every water source, and every long stretch of grass. On a cool morning, the matriarch walks more slowly and lets you come up alongside. She says nothing aloud, but her stamping rhythm is lighter. You look around and see the herd trusts you. You choose a route that leaves the resting ground toward the long shade. Let the herd feed for an hour before making the long move to the water source many kilometers away. On the way, you remind the groups to graze evenly, leaving a few patches for tomorrow. At the riverbank, you send the mothers and calves down first, with two strong aunts standing on either side like markers. After the crossing, you choose an open bank to dry backs in the sun for a while, then lead the herd into a sparse piece of forest with young grass. Toward evening, you check the wind and decide to rest on a high knoll so the night dew does not linger too long on the backs of the old ones. At times, you take a few youngsters to scout new paths. You do not go too far, only enough to note one backup water point and a detour in case people camp along the old bank. Back with the herd, you stamp twice lightly to call the whole group together, then share tomorrow's route with gestures everyone has long understood. As night falls, you stand still for a few minutes, recalling the road behind you. From the day you were born, you were sheltered. From a clumsy trunk to a skillful one. From wavering steps to a steady gait. From following to leading. Every lesson from your mother, your aunts, and the matriarch remains intact in your mind. Now it is your turn to pass them on to the young legs growing day by day. The life of the herd continues on old paths walked more deftly and new paths opened at the right time. Thank you for journeying together through an entire life cycle of the elephant herd, from nestling against the mother's belly to standing steady in the lead. I hope the footsteps, the traces of mud, and the water's edges in this story have brought you a sense of closeness and a clearer view of how elephants live each day. If you like, next time we'll continue by following another herd in a rainier land to see how their habits change with terrain and climate. See you in the next telling, when the herd's low thunder rolls across the cool grasslands and the familiar paths stretch a little farther.